Hey, this is Zac.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exo-terra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exo-terra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exo-terra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exo-terra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exo-terra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Hello, everyone. It is yet another Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. And with me, as always, is Mr. Clint Bartley. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing all right. We're doing things a little out of order, which is totally fine. Actually, this might be the new order because this is what we did with Amy. We recorded on a Monday.
Yeah. This is
recorded on Tuesday. But today was a day, so I'm very happy to talk about some snakes. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on. Our guest today is going to make the Milksnake peeps happy. We have Mr. Cole Grover on, talking about pale milks primarily, but all milks. So we're going to be doing some husbandry. We're going to be doing some breeding discussion, and then we're actually going to dive into some taxonomy and discuss a couple papers that Cole brought to my attention. And obviously, if Milksnake guy says we need to talk about this, we're certainly going to do that. And so that's what the episode will be once we get past our intro. But we have a bit of stuff to talk about in the intro. Mm-hmm. So as far as I'll do my updates, because my updates are really short and sweet. We're getting ready to knock everybody down for brumation. That sounded bad. We're getting ready to put everyone in brumation. I've been doing this crazy thing because we don't have cold Novembers anymore in the Mid-Atlantic. That just doesn't exist. So it's been this, it's going to be 50 degrees and freezing at night. And then it's 64, 70 degrees, and then like high 50s at night. So it's like, well, what the hell are we going to like? So I'm trying to knock down temps, and then the infamous garage just isn't dropping. The govies look like April. That's what it looks like out there. So I did one extra feeding. I had everybody cleaned out, and everybody was roaming. You know, there was a massive symbol of feed me, I need to eat. So I was like, okay, fine. So everybody got fed over the weekend, and hopefully right after Thanksgiving, the next couple of weeks look like they might be getting cold here. But that's my biggie, is just brumating this year is proving to be a little bit of a pain in the butt over here in the East. Is that what it's doing in Indy?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's funny you say that, because literally today, we haven't even discussed it. We haven't even been looking because, it's not even been close. But I started looking at the temperature over the next 10 days and 14 days. And I told Steve, I said, this is probably going to be our last week of feeding. I think, it's looking now that if we let them clear out for the next 2 to 3 weeks after this week, we're probably going to be about where we need to be for the weather, for us to shut the heat off and start pumping in outside air into those rooms. And but yeah, I'm with you. It keeps getting further and further. I remember when it used to be you would target in between Halloween and Thanksgiving. Yeah. Now, if you're able to put them down in December, you're lucky. It's definitely wild. So no, we're experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, here's what's funny. With my zoo herp class, every year we do this thing. We call it Zoo Cruise. I take the students to the Toledo Zoo on Friday. Then we go to the Detroit Zoo on a Saturday, and then we go to the Cleveland Zoo on a Sunday, and then we drive home to West Lip. And it's been this mild, nothing going on. We're doing that this weekend. Boom, first lake effect snow supposed to hit Cleveland and Toledo. And I was like, you SOB. And I got trapped up there once where we were driving from Detroit to Cleveland. We went into a Mexican restaurant to eat dinner at like 6, nothing outside. I had my back to a window. Mind you, 5 students were on the other side of the table looking through that window, And one of them said, it's getting kind of white out there. And I turned around and there was 2.5 inches of snow on the ground and the snow was going sideways. And I was like, you could have mentioned something a little sooner. And we had to ditch. And we ended up getting caught in an accident. We didn't get in an accident. We got behind an accident. We didn't get home to the university until like 5 a.m. So I got a little bit of PTSD from that one. So I had to redo my plans a little bit. But we're still going to go in light of the snow. But I was just find it rather humorous that no snow, and then here it's coming right when I don't need there to be any snow or cold weather is when it's all showing up. So anyway, but yeah, no, zoo cruise this weekend. I think I talked a little bit about this. It's cool. We get to go behind the scenes in all those different zoos, herp departments.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Jealous.
And then my own, what was that?
Jealous. I think that'd be really cool.
It's really good time. Toledo Zoo is way up there for me because they have a brand new Venom exhibit, and the curator there, or lead, I don't know what they call. I don't think they have curators there, like the lead keeper, or whatever the semantics are. Nick, he's a really great guy, and he treats my students well, and we get to see a tremendous amount of vipers, so which is pretty cool. Yeah, and the only other thing, I guess, which is herpetologically related, it doesn't have a damn thing to do with the colubrid. But over the past 2 weeks with Zoo Science, we do a lot of spotted turtle conservation work at the university, and we're part of the AZA SAFE program, Saving Animals from Extinction. And I got to go over to the Columbus Zoo and meet with conservationists there, and we are going to be doing some field work this spring with spotted turtles. And I love this because it's great when you get to go help someone do a project instead of be the guy in charge of the project. So I get to go with the students, catch the turtles, take data on the turtles, put the turtles back, and go home.
It's like being a grandparent. You get to enjoy the little ones and then send them back to.
We get to go do the fun part, and then turn the data over to the, primary investigator. That in this instance isn't me, and I realized that at this point in my life, that's totally fine. So there's that, and then the final update to give people that donated at the auction and Colubrid Fest, and people that want to donate to the Colubrid and Colubroid Radio Conservation Fund. I have been talking with Dr. Josh in Iowa about the hognose snake project and the snake community dynamics project. And I put out an ad for the grad students for that project. And I'm doing my interviews for those students tomorrow and Thursday. So we are absolutely moving forward with the project that was presented. It looks like it's going to totally happen. In fact, there's that meme that shows, I think it's General Akbar, and it's like, it's a trap. Like, I feel like this is a trap. This is going way too smoothly for a scientific field project. Like, there needs to be something as a hurdle, and there just has not been a hurdle yet. So nice. I'm stoked to do that. One of the crayfish students was kind of giving me hell a little bit, and they were like, do you like snakes more than crayfish now? And I didn't say anything. I just looked at them and walked away. I let them fill in that blank. So anyway.
Love it.
So anyway, that's my updates. Anything with you?
Well, yeah, really, before I go into my updates, I want to give a shout out. So just so everyone is reminded, please go check out Colubrid and ColubroidRadio.com. And it does have a conservation tab where you're able to go and see what we're going to be doing. But that's going to continue to grow, meaning that page will get bigger as this project goes underway, so we can give updates on the website. But there's several links where you're able to donate to the CCR Conservation Fund. We've had our first large donor. Thank you so much. You know who you are.
Yes,
we really appreciate it. And we're really excited to see what we're going to be able to do, with this fund going forward. As well as, remember, T-shirts are on there. We've had several orders coming through on T-shirts, and we thank you, listeners, for doing that as well. So please, Colubrid and ColubroidRadio.com. If you are a Metazotics customer, one of our locals that listens to the show as well, you've probably noticed one of the things that we are implementing here in the shop is we are actually, with each purchase, we are asking if you would like to donate $1 to the CCR Conservation Fund, which then Metazotics at the end of each month is able to move that money right over to the fund. So we want to continue to do our part to make sure that fund grows, and exciting stuff. Well, as far as what's been going on around here, I mean, it's a lot of prep, to be honest, where we've got Black Friday next week. I think this episode is going to come out Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Day before Thanksgiving. So the past few weeks, it's been a lot of my time's been cage building. We got a massive shipment in of Metazotics caging pieces because we get them cut elsewhere and then we assemble them here. And it's making sure that we're fully prepared, for that day and really for the Christmas season. And what I'm excited about, it's funny because I'm putting all these together. They're 4x2, and there's 4x2 by 12, 4x2 by 15, 4x2 by 18. And I'm putting all these together, and I'm doing them rather quickly because while I want to get that done, I also have several of them in there that I ordered just for the shop so that I can get the pines set up the way I want them and all that. But I keep telling myself, you have to get Black Friday prepared for first. Then you can play. You have to work first, then play. But a lot of that's going on. And right now, I'll tell you the other thing, it's been when trying to prepare for, and this is every year now, while preparing for Black Friday, I also have something else that takes my attention and my time. And that's hunting and spending and I love spending the time in the woods, but I hate spending so many days in the woods and coming home empty-handed. So, and this has been the worst season I have ever experienced when it comes to deer. And it's not just me. I'm talking to so many other hunters. And I mean, obviously it's been too warm. They're not moving as much during the day. Our gun season opened up the day after a full moon. And typically they're moving around a lot more it's a big, beautiful moon. I went outside and I looked at it. I loved it, beautiful moonlight, but knowing that that's obviously slowing them down a little bit as far as moving during the day. But I was telling you beforehand. So there's been several days I've not seen anything, which on our property is rare. I mean, incredibly rare, because the 30 acres we hunt on one side of us, we've got, I think it's 120 or 220. 220 acres of state land. So, I mean, get all that, the traffic from that side. And on the other side of us, we have 80 acres of cornfield.
Oh my God.
So the deer use us as a thoroughway. And I mean, so we're always seeing something. Not this year, except on opening gun. I was out there all day, hadn't seen a thing. I'm sitting right as the shooting light's starting to go down. So this is when they're going to be active. If I'm going to see anything, it's going to be now. I think I hear something to the right of me. And so I'm peeking around to the right, listening, watching. All of a sudden, I see a doe straight ahead of me that's ran past me on the left side, silent. Didn't hear her. And as I'm like, oh, crap. And so I'm getting my gun to try to, get in position. 3 more shoot past me. All of them at full sprint. So the only deer I see, they're hauling it, man. And they're just, very frustrating. So we'll go back out. I'll get out there Wednesday. But I hate when having this much to do at the shop. And then after sitting from 4 o'clock in the morning until 6 p.m. and just feel like you've wasted your whole day. So, but
do you find with your current life, like Clint at this age being in charge of Metazotics, and we have the podcast and we have all the bit, are you able to go out there and turn that off? Or is it like you're out there and you it's off and then it just like trickles in? And then an hour later, you're into it, and you're just full blown tsunami mentally going over everything.
So I go through these waves throughout the day, where in the morning it's like keep your phone put down. It's stay attentive. This is when you're more likely to see them. But then it gets to, and it depends on where I'm hunting. It'll change a little bit. When I'm hunting the field, I feel like I've got more time to see something coming. where when I'm in the woods, I've got seconds. When I see it, it's got be right, boom. But I can't shut it off because there's still messages to you when I think of something. It's on a Saturday, this gun season, it was Saturday. So I'm looking at where the store's at in volume throughout the day. And I'm like, it's been 30 minutes and they haven't sold anything. What are they doing? So I'm checking that out, but I'm replying to emails. I mean, it's hard for me to completely sit and do nothing. I just, that's incredibly difficult. So
yeah, that's what I thought we were going to say. That's what happened last time I went hunting. I looked up after I'd written an email with my phone and then was like, oh shoot. And like 25 yards in front of me broadside was an enormous doe. And I'm holding my phone and not my gun. And all I was thinking was, if my father, I was like 40, like I'm not young. And I always would hunt with my dad. And I went right back to, if my dad sees me right now, he's going to kill me. Like that was the,
I took Dex earlier this season and he made a comment about me being on my phone a lot. And my thought was, that's because I got you with me.
Yeah.
You're watching for the deer. I can look elsewhere right now because you're here. So
that's funny. Okay.
But yeah, so we've got that going. I mentioned kind of what we're looking at as far as brood mating. And I'm really looking forward to that.
I am too.
Do have speaking of, I was going to say part of me enjoying brood mating is obviously getting to cut back on the food bill, all that. Speaking of the food bill, so we have a stand-up freezer right behind the point of sale system so that, anyone who's needing frozen feeders, we're able to turn around, grab them right there. We've got everything organized by size, make it easy. So on Friday it was beeping at us and had like this flashing, light at the bottom. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And so I end up looking it up and it tells us that it's basically registering a warm spot or that's not sealing properly. I'm like, I got this thing in May, brand new. Yeah. So I'm like, all right. So I had Ox. I'm like, go in, grab everything that's in that freezer, put it in one of the chest freezers in the back. I don't want to take a chance. We got too much money sitting in this freezer, to let it go bad, and we'll unplug it and I'll deal with it come Monday. So he got everything out of there and I come in and I open it up and I'm like, ugh. Why does it smell like straight death in here? I'm looking, I'm like, it's empty. There's nothing. And then I look, and this is a tall freezer. It's taller than I am. And I look at the very top section of the door where I kind of have to do one of these numbers and, get on my tippy toes to look to see under it. There was half a bag of pinkies that had been left in there and nobody could have seen it unless you were as tall as, me and looking that high. And this half bag of you want to talk about it being nice and juicy at this point? And man, it stunk.
They go to that. When they start to do that, they do this weird thing where they like reach a state of decay and rot where they all merge into one super pinky. I don't know. Did it do that? Where they all like mush into each other?
Yes, it was just gloop. It was just
no.
That's doing one of these as I'm walking to toss it out. It was gross. But we've got somebody coming to take care of that this week and should be back in business on that piece. And but yeah, that's kind of I want to say with just that and Black Friday prep, that's pretty much what my life has entailed over the past couple weeks. So.
Good golly. All right. Well, let's move on to the science and the market update. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. And the market update is going to be, again, a little different. I like to keep mixing it up. So there'll be products I'll talk about a little more on the next one. What I wanted to talk about now is really what to expect over the next 60 to 90 days. Especially really from a seller and buyer standpoint, and maybe give some ideas and some tips. So, one, if you are a seller, now obviously if you're hearing this when it drops, you're hearing it the day before Thanksgiving and time's limited. But if you're a seller, I absolutely will recommend that you do something for Black Friday. Don't think of yourself as, I'm not a big box store. It doesn't matter. It's the mentality of the buyer right now is there's going to be specials, so I'm going to be looking. So whether you are advertising on the Show Me Marketplace, which of course is the sponsor for our market update, or you are on Morph Market, any other platform, you're going to want to run specials. Okay, make it happen. People are looking, eyes are out there. Utilize it, flex it up. At the same time, if you are a buyer, if there's something you're looking for, Black Friday is a good day to look. And really that entire weekend, because typically the specials are going to run Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Just know if it's something you really want, it may not be sitting there come Monday. So definitely utilize that weekend and grab something if it's caught your attention. A few tips as well, again, for the next 60 to 90 days. Understand that after Black Friday, from Black Friday through Christmas, you are going to have a buying season. The trick is whether or not you can be a seller that is available during that buying season. And I say that because typically what I do, I don't ship out the week of Thanksgiving. All shipments are on hold.
Oh yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan. I won't ship on Cyber Monday because you're going to have all that stuff that was ordered over the weekend being shipped on Monday. So I will ship like that Tuesday and Wednesday, the week after Thanksgiving. And I will ship probably upwards until about the second, sometimes third week of December. But then I cut it off. The closer you get to Christmas, the more apt you are to have delayed packages, have lost packages. The weather is starting to get, a little more rough. So I pretty much have put it on pause about, I'd say a week and a half to 2 weeks before Christmas. And it stays that way until after the first of the year. However, after the first of the year, now it's strictly weather window is what you're looking for. And that's on, and it's not just what your weather's like, it's what the weather's like, on the opposite end. So,
or at the hub.
Or at the hub, yeah. And so that's where really, when I say capitalizing on the Christmas and the holiday season, is all going to be on how available you are as a seller. And either one, are you available to be able to get the animals to them, especially if this is something they're wanting before Christmas, or are you willing to sit on the animals after purchase, take care of them for the however many months it might take before you're able to ship them? And this is where I will tell you, be flexible. Be flexible on some of that because, yeah, you may be sitting on it for months before you ship them, but you have a purchase. It's they're bought. Mm-hmm. Where if you don't sell them, you're still sitting on them for months and then hoping to sell them later. So be flexible on your shipping arrangement. Be flexible on how long you're going to hold them at your facility, at your place before shipping them. And I would also strongly recommend that this is the time of the year you consider payment plans. Because again, you're probably going to have to sit on it before shipping anyway. I'm not telling you to go crazy with it and give them 6 months to pay or something like that. But just know that people are looking, people are buying, and the more accessible you are as a seller, the more enticing you are with your policies, the better off you're going to be during this time of year. And I say that over the next 90 days because, again, after Christmas, you're going to have a little bit of Christmas money for the next week after that, where people were given money and they're going to be spending it. You go into January and you're going to hit about a 2 to 3 week potential lull where it gets a little quiet, gets a little soft. And that's where everybody's taking that breath after the holidays. But about 3 weeks in, sometimes 4, taxes start to come in. So it's ramped right back up again. Yeah, it ramps right back up. So utilize this, take advantage of it. And the other piece that I want to point out is this is, if you are a seller, the next 90 days are when you will want to, and actually further than 90, but right now, the next 90 days are when you will want to utilize your regional shows. Go vend. Because if shipping isn't really an option, how else are you going to sell it? How else are they going to buy it? Go to the shows, vend the shows. This is where you're able to move more animals during this particular time of year. And I did put something together just to give an idea on how things have played out for Metazotics. And this is over the year. And while this is probably going to remain somewhat true for the rest of the year, I think in the beginning, keep in mind with the retail store, it kind of skews things. So far this year, 80% of Metazotics revenue has come from within the four walls. Someone walking in and buying something right here. 11% has come from online sales, which leaves 9% for shows or regional shows. And, there's going to be times of the year that flexes up and down. Sometimes it depends on what shows I'm going to, what shows we're not. But I will say, as far as my effort, like Black Friday, that's going to skew again, because within the four walls is going to be insane. Online sales shoot up, that weekend as well, while of course we're not doing any shows. I think we only have 2 shows maybe for the rest of the year that Metazotics will be doing. With November and December, but then we're jumping right back in January, to several. So I just thought that'd be an interesting number. I know people kind of ask that a lot. So stay on it, guys. Stay chomping at the bit. Put it out there. Do shows. Be flexible. There you have it.
Well, there we go. All right, let me get this up. Okay, cool. We have a cool paper this week for our science update, brought to us by Rare Genetics, Inc. So, as always, get those shed skins to RGI so we can have the same luxuries with our morphs that the ball python peeps have. I know that Ben and company, Kayla, they want us to push this. We will be having Ben on for sure after the first of the year to do some of those genetics episodes, which I'm pretty stoked to have.
Yeah,
but
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, be a good one. Anyway, I swear I can speak. So here we are having a lamp episode. We know we were going to have Cole on inevitably, and then we got Cole to agree to come on this week, and then boom, a perfect lamp paper hit for our science for our science update this week. And basically, what our paper is a fun paper titled "Spatial Ecology of a Secret Chihuahuan Desert Colubrid, Lamprepeltis alterna in West Texas." So, as a scientist, whenever you go over a scientific paper, there's a little bit of a buzzkill, but that's just because it's science for those who aren't in the scientific world. So this paper has one issue with it, which is the sample size of snakes is 2. It's not 20. It's not 15. It's 2. But it's a freaking telemetry paper on Alterna. That's probably why there's only 2. So if you read this paper, it's open access. And we talked about this last week. We think we can get the manuscripts up on the website. So if you want this one, we'll try to get it up on the website for you. You can probably find it by searching DeSantis. That's the lead author. If you're listening in your car or while you're cleaning your snakes, if you type in DeSantis Lamprepeltis alterna herpetology notes, you'll almost certainly get the manuscript. But even though it has a sample size of 2, I've done my buzzkill scientist piece. Now I'm going to move on to the part that I really like this paper because the authors put it in a journal where they're not trying to do, hardcore ecology. They're just basically reporting on what they saw these 2 alterna do. And the journal they put it in was Herpetology Notes. I know I did a paper from this journal before. I love this journal. I hammered this journal when I was writing the False Water Cobra book because it's based out of South America. So getting, papers on all the snakes that I'm dealing with, this one worked out great. This journal worked out great. So here it is. So, got this up here. I'm just going to skip down to the area I have highlighted. We're going to do it this way. Sorry if this is making you sick if you're on YouTube. Because the $1 million question everybody wants to know, at least I wanted to know, is, are the snakes moving a lot? If they are moving a lot, how far are they moving when they move? And then when they do make a movement, is it a long distance movement or is it a short distance movement? So to get into this, we have MMF is the minimal movement per day, if you're looking at this on YouTube. And then we have MV, which is the motion variance, which is basically like how far are they? Is there a lot of variation in their movements? And then we have this other distance that they're reporting here in the area that I have highlighted, which is what is the mean move when they decide to move. What's the mean distance they're moving? And what I want all my Alterna peeps to understand from this paper should have a whoa response from people that do Alterna, because there's this idea that I've heard lots of people talk about that Alterna are far more common than we realize. They're just secretive. So I can see that. And these, results here kind of indicate that. But there's also this idea that they might be like getting in one crevice and living in that crevice perpetually. And based off our 2 Alterna, I'm going to say that one more time, based off of 2 snakes, we have a couple interesting little ditties here. So the first movement here, it's in red, right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but 22.4 plus or minus 6 meters. Basically what that is the meters per day moved. So what's interesting is the snakes are moving every day based off the telemetry work. So they aren't going into a crevice and just sitting there. They could go into the crevice, but they're going to move to another crevice, and then they're going to move to another crevice. And these are straight line distances averaged out. So please understand that when an animal moves, very rarely do they move. I mean, think about you moving through a room. You don't move straight line, but you can't calculate the total distance moved because you don't know that. So you just go point, minimal distance. So we got that for females, 43.2 meters per day with our male, which makes a bit of sense because boys are normally roaming. And then when they do make a movement, like when they make a real movement, the average long distance movement was 128.2 meters, plus or minus 26.6 meters for females, and 202.4 meters, plus or minus 71.6 meters. Moral of the story is these snakes during their activity period, they're up there, they're moving. We don't see them when they're moving because another thing they go to create links in the manuscript to talk about is that they are moving through the scree. So basically they're just making these movements just under the rock line, they thought, or under the boulders. So we got a super secretive snake, but the idea that they're like in a crevice and they sit there for months on end, that may not necessarily be what's going down. They may have a group of crevices, but this should give you hope. Somebody that goes out trying to find these animals, because they're probably moving. They're just moving where you can't see them. And that's what radio telemetry lets us know. And so the other thing that they calculated, which I thought was pretty cool, was estimated home range size. And you do this by basically going out with your telemetry unit. We're going to be doing this with the hognose snakes. And then you find the animals over and over and over and over again, and you get your coordinates. And then you map this in GIS, and you can create what's called a polygon, which is a multi-sided shape around all of the dots that make up, the locations. And then through some GIS and some math wizardry that we are never going to talk about on here because it's going to make everybody go to sleep. But anyway, it will calculate basically the minimal distance covered by that animal repeatedly. And so that's what we use to kind of let us know what the home range size is. And so I'm just going to read this sentence straight from the paper. The female's estimated home range size were 37.3 hectares at 100% MCP, 48.2 hectares at a 95% UD, and 5.3 hectares at a 50% UD. So basically what that's saying is that the 37.3 is probably the most likely, while the male's estimated home range size were 50.6 hectares at 100%, 9.8 hectares at 95, and 0.2 hectares at 50. So moral of the story is Alterna are moving, and that's pretty cool. And so this is a great paper, in my opinion. We talk about evidence-based herpetoculture. We talk about getting data from science, incorporating it into what we keep. I don't know how to incorporate this into what we're keeping. I know there's an avenue. To be brutally honest, I read it about 53 minutes ago to get ready for the episode tonight because I had a couple bombs go off at school. But yeah, for our Alterna people, I highly recommend you get this article. I don't know when we're going to have another Alterna article, but Dominic DeSantis, James Emerson, Jerry Johnson, and Vincent Matasilva are our authors. Pretty fun paper, and I was pretty excited because Alterna are about the same size as a hognose snake, and a lot of the methods they used in this paper I can directly apply to our project. Yeah. So, and I have every intention of doing that. So with that being said, that is our science update. And yeah, that's all I got on it. You got any thoughts on that, Clint? I know you like your Alterna.
Well, I certainly like my Alterna. That was a lot of. Can you say that again? Yeah, I mean that was
fair.
There's a lot of science jargon in there. That's what I might have to sit back and read through a few times and then message you. What does this mean?
Yeah, I got you. Gotcha.
Yeah, but very cool. Very cool. Absolutely.
All righty. So, are we ready to bring on Cole?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, without further ado, up to the stage, thanks to the advents of technology, we have now added Cole Grover, who unceremoniously dictates he is the Milksnake guy, which I think is pretty damn true.
Very much so.
Good evening, guys.
Hey, how are you, sir? Doing well?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we are very happy to have you on.
Yeah, looking forward to having you on. You know, I told this story, Cole, and I don't know if you heard the episode. I mentioned it. I think it was when we were talking to David. Obviously Cole got brought up and I said, I thought it was so great the first time that I'd reached out to Cole because he had some beautiful pale milks available and I knew nothing about them whatsoever, but I had to have them. These look so gorgeous. I want to work with these. And so I messaged Cole and, I asked him a couple questions, just kind of some of the basic questions on them. And he replied with like 2 PDFs. It's boom. It's one of those. It's like, you get those messages where someone asks for a care sheet and Cole's like, no, you're going to take all this reading. And I loved it. I thought it was just the neatest thing because I'd never had that happen before. And it's, I'm like, I'm talking to someone who really knows what they're doing. He doesn't just
got to read the research, man. Got to read the research.
I was like, this is fantastic. So I instantly had respect for you, Cole, with that first interaction. And so really looking forward to having you on tonight.
Well, thanks, man. That's been a few years ago, huh? Probably 10 or 12, maybe more?
Yes, at least. So, but good stuff.
So we always, when we have somebody on for the first time, we want to know the backstory.
Sure.
So is this something you've been doing since you were tiny, or is this something you found out when you were in college, or
no? Like most people that have been on the show. I mean, this is something that has been an affliction since I was a kid. I remember as a small child, like probably 3 or 4 years old. I was just completely fascinated with with reptiles and amphibians and bugs and all sorts of things. Just any sort of creepy crawly was my jam, and so that just never went away for me. I think a lot of people quote unquote grow out of that as they get older. I know some folks that were really into herps as kids, and then by the time they were adults they were damn near afraid of a snake. And so that's just never been the case for me. And so it's always been a part of my life. I just love being involved with them. So yeah, I grew up keeping reptiles and amphibians and tarantulas and scorpions and jumping spiders, anything I could find in the backyard. And my folks were pretty helpful and pretty encouraging. my dad, when I was a small child, would take me fishing, and then for half the day, my dad is a really big fossil nut also, and so we'd go look
Very
for
cool.
fossils. I'm lucky enough to live in a place where we've got a lot of fossils, and so we'd go look for ammonites and trilobites and
That's cool.
other cephalopods and things like that. Um, and so we'd be doing that, and then we'd look for phrynosoma horned lizards when we were out and about in these sagebrush flats, and anyway, it just kind of evolved from there. When I was probably 8 or 9 years old, um, my uncle, who happens to be, not surprisingly, he was the head of the biology department for our local school district for a long time,
Mhm.
and they found a little baby pale milk snake, and their neighbors. Their neighbors got some new carpet, and there was a little pale milk snake curled up in this carpet roll before it had been installed, and so he brought it to me, and I kept it for a whole week before it got out, and never to be seen again.
Mhm.
But you know, therein, I think, kind of began my love affair with milk snakes. And so, over the years, I've kept everything from some venomous stuff before it was illegal here where I live, to boas and pythons and things like that. But I think milk snakes have kind of always been, and colubrids in general, have always been kind of a mainstay of my collection, and now is pretty much entirely the focus.
So, do you want to let the listeners know where you grew up, and
Sure.
what were the herps that you would find the most often? Like, what were you out
Yeah.
catching most often?
So I was born, raised, and currently live in South Central Montana, just kind of on the outskirts of Billings. So
Nice.
pretty harsh climate. So we don't have a lot of herp diversity here, but the stuff we have is really cool. So we have 3 species of Thamnophis garter snakes here. We've got kind of the widespread racers we've got here.
Hmm.
Mhm.
We've got milk snakes, rubber boas, smooth green
Oh, that's
snakes are
cool.
probably a 4 or 5 hour jaunt away, but we've got smooth green snakes here as well. We've got prairie rattlesnakes, Crotalus viridis here. So those are kind of the common snakes that I would see, in addition to one of my all-time favorites, which is bull snakes.
Love
Oh,
bull.
yeah.
Yep. So we've got those. I've got them in my backyard. We see them on a semi-regular basis. Um, so anyway, those are kind of the snakes we've got here. For turtles, we've got painted turtles, smooth soft shells, and we've got some pretty nice looking common snapping turtles too, if you ask me. Um, then the lizards, we've got a small variety of lizards here. We really only have 2 species in my part of the state. We've got shorthorn lizards, greater shorthorn lizards, and then we've got sagebrush lizards, which are scaloporous,
Mhm.
and probably a primary food source for the milk snakes we're going to talk about today.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Nice.
then we've got a whole host of amphibians too, but that may be a topic for another day.
Sure.
So yeah, but tiger salamanders are one that's fairly abundant here. We've got spadefoot toads, a fairly arid adapted amphibian. We've got a population that exhibits pretty neat explosive breeding
Mhm.
strategy. Only about, I mean, it's walking distance from my house, so that's pretty cool. The kids and I go take walks over there when after we have a big thunderstorm, and see the
Oh, that's
tadpoles. And
cool.
yeah, it's pretty neat. See, anybody that's familiar with spadefoots knows that especially the western forms have got several ecomorphs that will evolve in the same pool of water, and there's a smaller omnivorous or almost vegetarian form, and then there's a larger form. As the puddles start to dry up, some of the individuals develop larger jaws with big keratinized beaks in them, and they're cannibals. It's pretty crazy.
That's
So
nuts.
Yeah.
yeah, pretty neat. So
When I was
Absolutely.
in Colorado,
but yeah, so I've
I see
been
that.
keeping reptiles and amphibians, and breeding them since oh the early 90s at the latest. I think I got my first pet frog probably back in the early 80s when I was just a little kid. So
Very
yeah.
nice.
Cool.
So, what are you keeping currently?
Well, I have almost entirely colubrids at this point. I also have a few colubroids, so I've got a decent group of Barons racers that I've
Nice.
really
Nice.
enjoyed. They provide a lot of difference in care and difference in demeanor, just overall activity patterns and stuff like that from the milk snakes I keep.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep mostly milk snakes, some montane king snakes, a few variable kings, things like that. Um, and then I have my kids have got a group of ball pythons. We keep mostly normal ball pythons, but the ball pythons are pretty neat and pretty easy animal for my small children to handle. And we don't breed them very often, but when we do occasionally get somebody that's looking for a pet ball python, we'll pair them up, and we always let the females do maternal incubation, which is a really neat bit of natural history that I think a lot of people miss. It's so fascinating to watch those females care for their eggs and see the little snouts poke out after a couple months. So got noises above you there?
Yeah. My dog just launched off the bed. I'm sorry.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, mostly milk snakes. And so I keep about half and half temperate milks and tropical milks. So most of my experience is with milk snakes. I've kept and bred virtually every form available in the hobby. So every type that's native to the United States, and then most of the Latin American forms as well.
Oh, cool.
Beyond that, I spend as much of my time as I possibly can in the field with them. So I used to herp a lot more, but now it's taking my kids with me, which is great. But I love to just go in the field and observe them. Spend a day flipping rocks. It's gratifying, good workout too. But nothing better than flipping a milk snake, taking photos of it, and watching it disappear back under its rock. And then sometimes, a year later, you can go back and flip that same rock, and the snake, or one rock within that a small area, and that snake will still be in that area. It's pretty fascinating to see.
That is really neat. What's geared you towards the milk snakes? Like,
so I think I would consider myself like a generalist natural history buff, I think. So I'm super fascinated by all of nature, I think. So reptiles and amphibians is one aspect of that, but I'm really into xerophyte plants as well. So I've got a pretty big fascination with cactuses and succulents and things like that. I think a lot of herpers do, actually. Arachnids and insects and things like that are really neat to me. Fish, especially cyprinid and cyprinodontid fish are pretty cool. I really like to see them. But I think for milk snakes specifically, it's that they cover such a broad range throughout North, Central, and South America. They cover just a ton of different habitat types. And I love to look at and speculate as to why the different forms have evolved, slightly different color patterns. Why do they look the way that they have become to look? What is driving that selective pressure, or I presume it would be selective pressure and not just drift or something like that. But I just the natural history aspect of them is pretty fascinating. I mean, if you take them as a group, we'll touch on taxonomy later on, but if you take them as a group, they range from southeastern Canada through the broadleaf temperate forests across into the southeastern coastal plain, to the grasslands, largely treeless grasslands of kind of this central portion of the United States, west into arid and semi-arid canyon lands, and even some montane habitats. You head further south and they're in thorn scrub to dry forest to truly montane or lowland rainforest. It's pretty fascinating how many different habitats that they thrive in.
It's funny as you're saying this, it's like, I think we're so similar in the sense of why we like a certain genre that we like, because everything you described just then when it comes to the milks is the same way I feel about most North American rat snakes, and how they cover the US and so many different types of habitats, and so many and how the same species can have a different look in this locality compared to that locality, and why, what's different. So I completely understand what you're saying and why you find that so intriguing, because I'm the exact same way. but with rat snakes. So
No,
I
it's
get it. I get it.
you've nailed it. I mean, that's the nail on the head, man. So I look at, you know, just thinking of like, you know, a Mexican milk snake from South Texas, and the, you know, the thorn scrub of South Texas, and, you know, why does it look that way? What, you know, what are the driving forces to make it look that way? How does it live its life? How does it eke out, you know, its living? What is it feeding on? What are the, you know, the plant associations? What are the, you know, the mammals and other reptiles in that area? You know, I'm fascinated by the soil types. I'm a, you know, avocational biologist, but also a little bit of an avocational geologist as well. And so, like, what are the soil types, right? Is this a, you know, a
Oh, soil.
decomposed sedimentary rock? Is this a, you know, what is it? What's driving these things? How do these animals live? And that's what's so fascinating to me, I think, about them is, you know, just they cover such a broad area.
You know, it's funny. I never considered myself someone that cared about dirt, but
Yeah.
so much in the past few years
Mhm.
when it comes to, I'm getting more and more involved in different bioactive or slash
Mhm.
naturalistic, you know, enclosures, and
Yep.
so many of our guests that we've had come on do wonderful things with it, and it's become much a much bigger conversation. And I find it so neat. I mean, Zach and I have even had conversations on hognose
Mhm.
and coming up with what is that perfect breakdown, you know, of for a natural substrate, you know, for them. And even now, you know, I mentioned earlier that building these cages for these pines and,
Mhm.
you know, wanting to get more into bulls, and I want to set them up a little more naturalistic. And that's, I've been researching, okay, what's the best mix and, you know, what's put together to try to get it to where it works well. And so it's funny because I never cared, you know, about
Yeah.
dirt and sand or clay. I
Oh,
only cared when I had to dig in it, you know, but it's become so much more interesting, you know, in my later years now. So I get it. I totally get it.
well, you know that I've gone off the deep end with dirt. I don't
Mhm.
go whenever I go to where the Western hogs are, and you know, at least one of the places I've been had pale milks because we found them right next to
Mhm.
where we were finding the hognose snakes. But it's the last thing we do before we leave is we go to Lowe's and I buy 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets and a shovel because you can't put a shovel on an airplane, and send the kids back with dirt. We've got dirt
Yep.
from Iowa, Colorado. I missed my opportunity in Minnesota, which pisses me off. But anyway,
Have to
but
go
yeah,
back
no,
now, right?
yeah. So I have a question. We'll
Sure.
talk a little bit more about herping, but just to kind of get in on the milk snake
Mhm.
thing specifically before we move on to husbandry, have you been able to see milk snakes in a fair number of places, or
Yeah.
are you just kind of there in the, you know, not just in the there, but you know what I mean, like in the
Yeah, no, I get you. No, and that's so that is actually the focus of many of my herping trips across, you know, different parts of the country.
Mhm,
Whether it's traveling to Kansas or Nebraska, or, you know,
mhm.
I've focused mostly in the Western U.S. just because it's driving range for me.
Yeah,
But Utah, Colorado, you know, kind of all over the Intermountain West, and into the Great Plains. Spent a lot of time into Oklahoma and, you know, places like that. Specifically traveling to look for milk snakes. It's just
gotcha.
I love to be in the field as much as I can, and yeah, being able to travel to those places is pretty fascinating. It is gratifying. It makes the whole trip worthwhile when you do flip a log or a
Yeah.
rock and, you know, find the snake you're
Well,
looking for.
Max, if you can hear me, can you put up the first slide of our PowerPoint for tonight, just so people can, because I've got a quick little aside. Or do I do that? I guess I do that. So here we go. Uh, so I
Hey,
believe
look
this
at
is
that.
a gentilis.
Beautiful.
It
Uh,
sure looks like it.
all right,
I bet
good.
I know where that one came from too, so we'll
All
talk offline about that. But
all right, cool. But here's my fun story about Western milk snakes, or Lamprobeltis gentilis, or Lamprobeltis triangulum gentilis, whatever you want to call it. So I, being an Eastern guy in West Virginia, Appalachia, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, Florida, like that's kind of where I always herped. I didn't make my way out west until the fall of 21. And I went out west with one of my former grad students. He's one of my favorite humans on earth, Alex Schmacht, and then his girlfriend, Erin Allison. We did a 10-day trip to find Western hogs. We found so many damn snakes, but we did not find a Western hog. And I had no clue. This is what was in Kansas, something that was similar to this. And I was out looking for something, and we were in a rock cut. And Alec was like, "Hey, we got to get a gentilis." And I was like, "Okay." And so I'm out looking, and he was like, "I got a milk." And when I turned around and saw something very similar to that in his hand, I was like, "What the hell is going on out here?"
Something wrong with your milk snakes.
Anything like the kind of maroony, black and gray Eastern milks that I have caught like literally dozens and dozens and dozens of. So it's a pretty spectacular animal. And then move on to the next slide if you can, bud. And then just so people know, that's Rob Stone. He was with me. That gives away where we might have been. But he's another MPR Network guy. So we were pretty damn happy when that was a beast of a milk snake. But anyway,
did it chew on you?
But yeah, of course it did. It's a milk snake. Yeah, I stopped handing Easter if I have a group of like seasoned students with me and we're out in the field and we find the milk, I'll totally hand it to them. But first time herpers, I like latch onto that milk snake and I let them hold the back end, but I'm holding the head because I don't want to like that nice little slow. Oh, I'm
Search
bound to bam.
Yep.
Yeah, sneak attack.
That's pretty
But
cool.
anyway, okay. So we want to talk a bit about husbandry because you are definitely known for producing pale milks and tropical milks and all the like. And this is the bread and butter of our show. So when it comes to keeping milks, we'll just start with adults. What is your basic setup for them? Sure. And then we'll kind of move on to temperatures and feeding and that whole jazz.
Sure, but by and large, I've found through years of experimentation that what works best for me is an enclosure, typically a rack system with heat in the back. I use a fairly deep layer of aspen bedding, obviously a water bowl, and then hides for milk snakes. So tight hides. Oftentimes commercially available hides don't do a thing for milk snakes, just like they don't for many colubrids because of they're too spacious almost. They don't provide the tactile security that a lot of smaller snakes, especially a small brightly colored snake that wants to stay secreted all of the time. If they're out in the open, they're in danger. Birds eat them, mammals eat them, so they want to be hidden, and so they want to feel tight. They like to feel things against their sides, against their top, against their bottom. So I've found that Ziploc tubs, little plastic Ziploc tubs, or old deli containers filled with damp sphagnum moss, and a hole cut in it provides a really fantastic hide. It provides a good place for them to go to increase their humidity. They don't do well if they dry out. Snakes in general, but milk snakes specifically, they've got fairly thin skin, and they just are the cuticle on their scale doesn't seem to be thick enough to prevent them from dehydrating. So being able to have access to moisture is pretty key for their success. I find they feed better too if they've got fairly moist place where they can go to a humid hide. So the other thing is warmth. You'll have to play with your own setup and find what works best for you, obviously. But I find that a warm side about 86 to 88 degrees,
cool,
with a gradient down to around 70 to 72, which is kind of my ambient temperature in my herp room. So that kind of covers the basics. It's not that much different than any other North American colubrid or temperate colubrid in general, right? Especially something that's largely nocturnal or crespicular, right? Obviously, diurnal snakes are a completely different animal. But where it does start to come into play here is seasonality. And so the temperate milks are really, really cued into the seasons. And I have natural light through my snake room. I think that's pretty important to help them regulate their seasonality. But they start shutting down a lot of times for the winter, sometimes in mid-August, preparing for a inevitable snowstorm that's going to happen. Talking now again about just about temperate milks, but they start to shut down, and they'll gradually go off feed on their own, one by one, kind of through the weeks of August and into September, and then by October, I've usually only got 1 or 2 snakes still that's feeding. I'll clear them out, and then I cool them.
Cool.
So cooling is something that a lot of people, I think, don't understand how important it is for an animal. Especially one that naturally experiences a pretty harsh winter, like we would see in the most of the northern half of the U.S. at very least. My snakes go into I'm lucky enough to have almost like a root cellar under my garage. My garage is built on structural foundation, and so I've got a nice space under there where I can keep them cooled to 40 to 50 degrees for months on end.
Nice,
which is pretty nice. They don't lose weight during the winter time. Check on them every couple of weeks, make sure that the tubs are dry and that they've got good water. But otherwise, I just leave them in from about Halloween until usually about mid-March. From mid-March, I gradually, a nice long one, exactly. So then I'll bring them up, leave them at kind of room temperature, in the upper 60s for about a week or so, and then gradually bring them into the snake room, which is low 70s, and then I put them on heat. So that's kind of how I run through the year there.
Are you not feeding them until they get to the 70s, or do you try?
I stop. Yep, I don't feed them until I bring them into the 70s. So usually kind of the first week of April is about the first time I start feeding them. Interestingly, most of the temperate milks I find breed almost right away. So as soon as I bring them out and get them onto heat, I start pairing them up. So usually right after the first meal, within sometimes hours after the first meal, I'll pair them up. If we don't pair them soon enough, then you miss the female's ovulation.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of my friends, John Kramer, for example, in Kansas City, he actually cools his adult pairs together because where he's at, he's had issues with them missing breeding if he waits until he pulls them all the way out of cooling.
I can see that.
I'm doing the same thing with several Asian species this year because I'm just feeling that I'm missing ovulations early. And I mean, a lot of the Asian species are known to breed early anyway, but I'm wintering them completely together. I've always put them together early, but now I'm actually putting several of them together to just winter them and see what happens.
I had the best luck with that when I was breeding rubber boas. That was one of the things that worked best for me too, is to just keep them together basically all year round. Let them decide when to breed.
Yeah.
Since substrate, we talked about substrate prior to this. What do you use as your substrate for your milks?
So by and large, I use just shredded aspen. I've experimented with a number of different things over the years, from Sandy chips to coconut-based substrates and things like that. And I find that the aspen allows them to burrow through it. They can get down there and basically provides an extra hiding place for them. Holds its form well when they tunnel through it. Is cheap and easy to replace. Helps keep the cages clean. I'm not worried about trying to dump an expensive mix of soils or something like that. So I'm kind of a germaphobe, and so having having stuff clean all the time is really big for me.
Gotcha.
For the juveniles, though, I do typically start them out on folded paper towel in deli cups. I find that it's easiest to get them feeding and then prevent them from ingesting substrate if I keep them on paper towel until they get 6, 8, 10 meals in them, and then I'll transfer them into more permanent enclosures.
And some of these temperate milks, when they hatch,
they're tiny,
are ridiculously small.
Yeah.
Very
2, 3, 4, 5 grams. So
Oh my gosh. Well, we move on to feeding, I am curious for my own selfish reasons. That was a great breakdown of the cycling for the temperates. How do the tropicals that you keep, are
very
they
different?
How do they differ in your approach? And let's say we're like back in the summer going into brumation now. And I'm saying this because I might have just got some Stewart's milk snakes. And I'm going to make sure I do this right, because I think I just got lucky the one time I bred Hunter.
During the active season, I keep them very similar, just on a scaled up size. Tight hides, but a fairly spacious enclosure to allow them to move. I make sure that they've got plenty of moisture, same temperature gradient. So for the tropicals, though, I start letting them clear out for the winter, usually right around Thanksgiving time. I'll offer the last meal, let them clear out for 2 weeks, and then I cool them. And by cool them, I mean put them at about 65 to 68 degrees in a location that gets natural light, so they still get that natural cycle. My understanding is that they do not fully disappear into the great underground like most of the temperate animals do during the wintertime. They have reduced activity, cooler temperatures, slightly, but cooler temperatures, reduced photo period. And so I try to mimic that with their cooling. I don't feed them when I've got them cooled. Some people do. Some people have great luck cycling them just with photo period alone. But I try to mimic that reduced temperature, and therefore a reduced food load and things like that on them. So
cool.
I keep them cool but not cold.
And then how long are they cool but not cold?
So I bring them up usually in mid-February. So they get about 2.5 months of cool time. So
gotcha.
Bring them up in mid-February, and then get a jump on getting them fed back up. Is what frankly, I am kind of a weather buff too, right? And so I watch the climate cycles and things like that for places like Nicaragua, if you're talking about Stewart's milk snakes, right? And most of those have come in out of Nicaragua or Costa Rica. And so, look at places like, Santa Rosa National Park in Costa Rica that has, there's weather stations set up around there. Some other, nearby towns like Liberia and things like that in Costa Rica that can provide some really fascinating data about temperature cycles and when rains happen, right? The rainy season isn't necessarily when people would think the rainy season is, and it winter isn't what necessarily people think it is either, right? So
no, that's one of the things I think that's part of the reason why I bought the Stewarts. Is that the place that I go with the university? In fact, I'm going to be down there in 4 weeks. Is Guanacaste, the Guanacaste province.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe
in the Northwest. Yeah.
And people view Costa Rica as this lush, wet, tropical place, and that's more of like a thorn scrub, dry forest in that part. And it's crazy how in July it's wet, and I don't want to say cool. That's going too far, but at nighttime it's getting down to like the 60s. But April, which is the beginning of the warm season, or the middle of it, it's like the seventh circle of hell there.
It's hot and dry, right?
Yeah, very hot, and then it gets humid, but the heat index can be pushing like 110. Like the very first time I did a spring break trip down there, we were doing a bunch of like manual labor, and it's the only time in my adult life where I was like, this might be when I die. Like I was hauling these carts full of vegetation, and the heat and the humidity, it's just like boom. But the thing that's crazy about it is that it's only that way, insanely hot, from like 11:30 to 2 in the afternoon. And then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's dropped 15 degrees.
Yeah.
And by 5 o'clock, because it's getting dark around 5, because we're near the equator, it's down around 70. So there's like a 40 to 45 degree Fahrenheit temperature differential in a 6-hour period of time, which is
crazy, huh?
Crazy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, super cool place. Okay, well, good. So we've basically covered breeding with the cycling because you put them together.
Yeah.
Final question I have with the tropical milks. Because we hit on this before with black milk snakes, and we talked with David and everybody. Kayla with Hondurans. You put them together out of brumation. Do you just keep them together?
No.
Do they do because most of the tropical milks do this kind of later breeding and are dropping the eggs like midsummer, late summer. Correct? Or is that not what you have in your experience?
No, these guys they breed early, they breed heavy, but they also feed really heavy, and that can lead to issues with cannibalism. I have lost multiple snakes from cannibalism.
Holy hell.
Yeah, it's something you want to know your animals, and if you don't, then you need to be there to watch, because I've had males kill females, and I've had females kill males. Usually, it's the females that kill the males.
It's usually what I got.
Yep. And it is terribly unfortunate when that happens. It can be heartbreaking, especially when it's an animal that you've had for many years. Many of my animals I've had for a long time. I had a female pale milk snake from Thomas County, Nebraska, that just passed away 2 years ago, and she was collected as an adult in Thomas County, Nebraska, in 1992.
Wow.
And she bred up until the year before she passed away. So they can live a long time. I think a lot longer than most people realize also. They live a long time if they're, their needs are met, I think. Not fattened up too much. I mean, it's tempting to want to feed our snakes a lot, right? I like to watch my snakes eat. I think we all do. The problem is that, they can get too fat on a diet of domestic mice, I think.
Sure.
Easily.
So on that token, what's your feeding rate? And we'll do pale milks first.
Sure. Yeah. So I let their body condition tell me, honestly. A lot of times when they come out, they're voracious. But I know what they look like in the wild, and I know what their body form is supposed to look like. Like I said, it's easy to want to overfeed them, and give them, 10 or 12, fuzzy or hopper mice a week. And maybe, early in the season, that's not so bad. But by the time you start hitting June or July, that can be too much, and they can get too fat. If you start seeing the, when they bend and you get the wrinkles on the inside of their bend, that's too much. Cut it back. So I feed probably, 5 to 6, fuzzy or hopper mice a week to eat to the breeding females. The males, just like with anything, slim in shape males breed better than ones that are too obese. And so, I keep them on 2 to 3, fuzzies or hoppers a week, and they maintain, great body weight and are, active, successful breeders.
I want to point out something else that you just said, that because we touch base on this a lot whenever we have a guest on that is keeping something that they go and observe in the wild. And I'm loving that we're having more and more guests that do that exact thing. So we often talk about the habitat and how we're able to mimic, more so in captivity, what their natural needs are whenever you're able to go look and see, this is what they're living in. This is what I see them on, this is the type of dirt that they're in, and all this. But one of the points you just made is something I don't think we've said before or had a guest say that I absolutely loved. You just said it. And that was, I know what their body type is supposed to look like because I've seen so many in the wild, that this is what they naturally look like when fed properly. And that's awesome. I mean, that's something that I think very few of us can say about really too many species, because yes, we may keep a bunch of them in captivity, or it's one that we have caught in the wild, but to actually be out there studying them so often and viewing them so often to say, this is what the body type should look like in captivity because of how many times I've seen it in the wild, that's an excellent observation. And I think that's really cool. Really
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, I've literally seen hundreds of milks in the wild, and so that's not something that everybody has the luxury of, right? And it's not something I expect everybody to have the luxury of. But being cognizant of how the snake looks, how it acts. Is it sluggish? Does it act fat? does it look fat? Or is it supple and moving fluidly like it should? I think that's you can make informative decisions based on what you're seeing.
I'm going to start using that as my descriptive now. I'm not fat. I'm supple.
Yeah.
I'm supple.
Yeah.
I like dark beer, so
Nice. Okay,
this is good stuff.
Well,
are we ready to talk about babies? I'm like itching to talk about
that's where I
babies.
was going.
Okay,
yeah, that's what everybody wants to talk about. Babies.
Yeah,
So
yes, because I mean, there's so little bit, and like, give some examples. I mean, of size, like comparison, because again, when we talk about grams, not everyone can translate that.
yeah.
And so just how little these guys really hatch out as.
Like that. My hands aren't that big. I'm 5'8". My hands aren't that big. So
3 inches?
like 4 to 5 inches, I would say on average. There are some localities that hatch out bigger. So across the broad range of temperate milks and tropical milks as well, there's so many different habitats and different prey items that they feed on. Oftentimes, the hatchling size is dependent upon what the primary food source is at a particular locale. So I think about the sandhills of Nebraska, for example, one place that you can find pale milk snakes. Sandhills in Nebraska, which is a totally wild landscape if you've never been there.
Sounds great.
Lizards, small lizards, little skinks and nimidophorus, whiptails or race runners, little scoloporous lizards, things like that, like fence lizards and things like that are fairly abundant in that habitat. And the snakes that hatch there are smaller than, say, an animal from like Clint. Some years ago, you bought some animals from me from Bighorn County, Montana.
Yep, Bighorn.
And
your memory is impeccable.
So those the animals that you got from Bighorn County, Montana were about twice the size of many of the hatchlings from the Sandhills, Nebraska. And the reason for that is, at least conceptually in my head, how I've worked through this, is that the animals from Bighorn County, Montana, have very limited access to lizards. They're nest raiders, rodent nest raiders from the get-go. They start off that way, feeding on Peromyscus and Microtus, white-footed mice and voles, and they raid those nests. They're really cued in on the scent of those native mouse pinkies, and they have to be big enough to swallow those right from the start. They've got, like I said, very limited access to lizards in some locales, but in other places, ectothermic prey is the primary thing that's available, whether it's worm snakes and decay snakes and things like that, or whether it's lizards. But how I understand it is that the hatchling size is directly proportional to what they would feed on naturally in the wild.
Makes sense.
So,
I mean, yeah.
So that brings us to kind of the next point here is, how do you get these babies to eat?
Yeah.
A lot of snakes, not just milk snakes, but colubrids in general, don't recognize the smell of domestic mouse pinkies, these, hundreds of generations deep, thousands of generations deep, laboratory strains of domestic mice. They don't smell like a wild rodent. And so the snake doesn't necessarily recognize that as a food source. So I typically start off every baby snake that hatches here. I offer it an appropriately sized pinky mouse or part of a pinky mouse, pinky heads, frozen thawed pinky mice or parts of in a deli cup. Leave it overnight. See what happens. Come back in the morning. Take a marker. If they've eaten, I mark it off. If not, I remove it. Try again the next week. If that doesn't work, then I try tricks. So there's a lot of tricks. Flash boiling pinky mice, frozen thawed pinky mice can work pretty well. It seems like I've got, maybe I don't have the statistical numbers in front of me, but just off the top of my head, I would say maybe 30% of the time, something that doesn't take just a generic frozen thawed pinky mouse would take a quick boiled one. Another trick is scenting. So trying lizard scents, either a frozen thawed lizard that you've split open and can get the gooey guts out of the middle. That seems to work pretty well. There's a lot of people who have hesitations on scenting because they're afraid that the snakes will become dependent upon that scenting. I have not found that to be true, but I know plenty of good people that say that is the case. So to each his own there. Another good scenting technique is a little bit of fuzz feathers off of a chick.
Yes.
That can work pretty well. Not necessarily with temperate milks, but one thing that works really well with temperate milks, if you can do it and you're not afraid of hantavirus, is to get some bedding or some hair or even the juicy guts out of a wild rodent, either a Paramiscus or a Microtus, white-footed mice or voles. I usually keep a couple of those in the freezer all the time too for scenting.
It's funny you say that, because I'm sitting here and we've got mouse traps all over the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm literally thinking the next Paramiscus is going in the freezer.
Yeah, it works super well. It works super well. Not on everyone, right? But it does work pretty well. My kids keep a number of different types of geckos, and so there's always a little bit of gecko skin laying around too that you can use a little drop of water and paste a little piece of the skin on the top of the pinky's head. That can work wonders as well. For people that don't want to mess with scenting, and I've had great success with this also, is just starting the tail of a fuzzy or a hopper mouse in the snake's mouth, and a lot of times they'll chew it up and swallow it. And after 5 or 6 meals of that, sometimes then they've cued in that domestic mouse must not be so bad, and they'll start to feed on domestic mouse pinkies from that. I've also I haven't used it much, but I've heard other people use like Carnivore Care. It's a veterinary supplement for under the weather carnivores. Basically, it's a powder you mix up into a paste, and you can use it as basically an injectable and force feed the snake that way. I prefer not to force feed if I don't have to. Philosophically, if I just in my own head, it feels better to me if the snake is happy and will feed on its own, then I feel better about it being in my care.
Do you do chicken hearts at all, or no?
So I have not found a ready supply of chicken hearts where I live.
I just did.
Same. I couldn't find any. I was just looking this weekend because we just had the episode with Amy, and because of that, my son Dex now has some Oregon spotted, red spotted garters on the way. I'm picking them up tomorrow. So he and we spent Sunday walking around the shop while the shop's closed, getting all the supplies, for him, and made that deal with him. Look, I'm going to buy all the supplies for you. I'm going to completely get you set up. You're buying the food, you're cutting it up, you're taking care of all that. So we went and we got him some tilapia, some catfish, some livers, chicken livers. Cannot find any chicken heart, whatsoever. Yep. I did find some frog legs, so I went ahead and grabbed those for me. So I'm going to need those. But
no, and I don't know if it's a regional thing or what, but there just is not a supply. I mean, short of going and buying, whole chickens, I just don't have a supply of them.
I am in Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, we got chicken farms all over the place around here. How do I not have chicken hearts at my local grocery?
I had to go into Pittsburgh, and there's this area in Pittsburgh called the Strip District where there's all kinds of markets and everything. And my friends at work were like, "You want to go to the Strip?" That's what we call it here. And, they want to go to the Strip to get beer. And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I really do." And they were like, "Why?" I was like, "Chicken hearts." And they were like, "Okay, it's you being you again." Like, so
sit in the back.
They're actually in my
friend's
friend's
the beer too
right now because we didn't have a cooler. So they're cheap too, $2. And I think I got like 30 for $2. So
I really don't know how. We literally have a Tyson processing plant 40 minutes from here. How do I not have chicken hearts readily? But
anyway, okay.
No, if it was beef, I could get it here, but yeah. So I would love to experiment with that. I know some great folks that have had fantastic luck with that, and I just if it was available, I would do it.
Well, I've now figured out that I can hit the Strip on my way to the Pittsburgh monthly show. So, and then I was in there and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Like they had whole frogs, which I thought was interesting to see in a cabinet for people consumption. Like I understand that at a herp show, but there's these like bullfrogs just laying out on the ice. And I was like, oh, so
it's good to know. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
I want to point one thing out, and then I'm going to like push you guys towards the topic that I'm not going to have any relevance on. So one thing I do want to say, so you were talking about that interesting area in Nebraska. And is that where the Cherry County locale comes from? Okay. So, and I wanted to commend you on this as well. Because when I first contacted you, those many years ago, it was on Cherry County about Cherry County babies, because they are gorgeous. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous locality. And to your credit, when we started talking about them and I'm asking the questions and, letting I've got zero experience with them. Here's what I'm hoping that, we start on some that are already on pinks and good. And that's when you moved me away from the Cherry County, which I'm pretty sure you had that were even more expensive. So you could have, made more money on them. Moved me away from those into the Bighorn because they were bigger, and you knew you were setting me up for success more so with those than with the Cherry County. But so I wanted to commend you for that, and I was just curious if when you described that, if that was Cherry County.
That's exactly where it's at. Yep, there's a really pretty river that flows right through there, and then just south of the river, river flows right through Cherry County, but just south of that river is where the sand hills start, and it is a wild landscape. It's all sand that's eroded off of the decomposed granite. Basically, it's eroded off of the Rocky Mountains. It's it's a cool area.
Really so the only part of Nebraska I was there a lot, but was the Lincoln and Omaha area.
Yeah,
how far is your?
Oh, driving wise, oh boy, that you'd be pinning me down. But like a ways.
I figured so.
Opposite side of the state. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, now
one final question though. Incubation. We always ask that question.
Sure.
Do you put them in an incubator? Pale milk. Oh my gosh.
I used to use an incubator for everything.
Okay.
It worked fine.
Okay.
I incubate at room temperature, which on the top of some shelving in my herp room is about 78 degrees, and it works fine. Works just fine. I get exactly the same hatch rates. It seems like there's no differences in the survivability of the babies. I do find that the lower incubation temperature, not going at 82 degrees or whatever, providing some fluctuation and going at a slightly lower temperature, I do get larger hatchlings, which is cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Is that tropical and temperate?
I do. Yep. Even my Barron's Racer eggs right now are sitting at about 78 degrees. So, yeah.
Because I had a black milk clutch, and it went all the way, and then they died. And I had them in an incubator, and I was on the fence with that. And Clint was actually saying cooler's better, and that incubator was set at 78, but I think it was kind of spiking at times. So next year, y'all can't see it, but there's a bookshelf right over there, and that's where all the cool incubating animals are all going up on that shelf.
Even in the height of the warm season at the elevation in Costa Rica, I mean the temperature can drop significantly down into the 40s Fahrenheit, right? I mean, so it's not unreasonable to think that those eggs also experience quite a bit of fluctuation, even if they're laid underground, and
exactly.
So
cool. Okay. I think we're good. So now we're going to segue away from care and talk about the wonderful taxonomy that is milk snakes. So, and if you know anything about, North American snake taxonomy, your little brief introduction is that the milks, just like the king snakes, initially they were proposed. Well, some of them were given species status. Most of them were just simply given subspecies status off of Lamprepeltis triangulum. And then there were a bunch of treatments. I will say one thing before we go any further. This is what I was grabbing off my bookshelf. So we all need to, if you're a milk snake buff, get your hands on this. If you're watching YouTube, it's Williams' Systematics and Natural History of the American Milk Snake. I don't know. I would say that is it a fair statement to say that most of the subspecies, even though they may not necessarily be recognized scientifically, and I'm talking about all of the triangulum former subspecies, in herpetoculture, we at least recognize those older subspecies, or is that not true? Like,
that's true. No, that's absolutely true. And so that book you just flashed up, that was the initial version of the book, the first edition. Which is a publication that was basically made out of Ken Williams' PhD dissertation.
Yes.
So that was the 1978 version. In 1988, there was a second version that came out that included a few additional forms that had been described since then. So like Pueblan milks, Campbelli had been described between the two versions of the book. So yeah. Anyway, I'll divert back to you now.
Oh no, that's fine. This is why we got you, man.
That's right.
So
I'm not even pretending to be the expert on this group.
You want to talk about herp taxonomy, right? Especially North American columbrid taxonomy. I mean, there's few things are going to evoke the passion or the zest out of people, like even rivaling politics, right? So, anyway, just to go back in time. So around 1921, a gentleman by the name of Frank Blanchard did a big systematic review of the genus Lamprepeltis, and included description of all known specimens and forms that were available to him at that time. The 1920s was not a time when people had easy access to museum collections or specimens from far-flung places like Sinaloa, Mexico, or Cartagena or Costa Rica, or anything like that, right? So anyway, Frank Blanchard went through and, based on morphology, basically assumed a 3-species concept of milk snakes as a whole, ranging from, like I said earlier, from Canada to Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela in South America. And those 3 species were Lamprepeltis triangulum, which was the temperate forms, basically across the United States and down into northeastern Mexico, including the Mexican milk snake, annulata. The scarlet king snake, which lives primarily in the southeastern U.S., and then the tropical milk snake or tropical king snake, which ranged from kind of northeastern and northwestern Mexico all the way south into through Latin America into Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. And that stood for quite some time. And then in the early 70s, Ken Williams did his PhD work. You've got the book there. And he, through his 2 iterations of that publication, sort of synonymized, all of those 3 species into one conglomerate, Lamprepeltis triangulum, that encompassed 25 subspecies across that range. Huge number of subspecies. And that worked pretty well for people, with the exception of some funky stuff that happens along the eastern coastal plain, something called the coastal plains milk. That would probably be a topic for we could spend a whole 2 hours talking about just that.
And David would have to come on.
He would.
Kill us if I didn't include him on that.
He would have to be on here. Yeah, because he has the passion that guy has for coastal plains milk is unparalleled. Yeah. So anyway, that stood for quite some time. follow up to the the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, 2006 timeframe. The exact dates are escaping me, but some gentlemen by the last names of Harper and Finnig did some molecular work on milk snakes, especially in the southeastern U.S., looking at some biochemical data, and basically said, you know what? These scarlet kings are so different from the rest of the milk snake group. They need to be separated out as Lamprepeltis elapsoides, an arrangement that actually mirrored what Blanchard had proposed back in 1921.
Yeah.
So that publication, those series of publications didn't get as much publicity as they probably deserved. It was some kind of cool work back in the early 2000s. But then around 2014, the Burbrink lab.
Yeah, we have that. Bring that up, Max. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. I do that. I keep
Let's
forgetting.
say, yeah, he's got it. You got to hunch it.
Yeah, there we go.
Keep going. Sorry about that.
Nope, all good. So some more updated molecular work from the Burbrink lab did a pretty thorough evaluation. They looked at a lot of different snakes and collected samples for DNA samples from a lot of different animals, and did a really thorough evaluation of the relationships between these different populations. And they ran it through some software, looking primarily at mitochondrial DNA, a little bit of morphological stuff, and I think there was. You'd have to correct me since you've got it in front of you there, but maybe just a few nuclear genes.
I think it is a few nuclear genes.
Yeah, just a handful. But they ran it through some software, and the most likely hypothesis that came out of this was a 7-species approach. So they took what up until then had been basically 2 species. There was Lamprepeltis triangulum, that was the all-encompassing milk snake from Canada to Ecuador, and then the southeastern Lamprepeltis elapsoides, and split it up into 7 species. So that was a pretty radical thing, and many people, myself included, are pretty resistant to change, right? I get fired up. My wife has to move furniture when I'm gone because it sends me into a panic. But, if she listens to this, she's going to laugh about that because it's true. This produced quite a stir, and if nothing else, the number of specimens and the amount of data that was analyzed in this was pretty phenomenal. And regardless of your take on their outcome, their hypothesis for the taxonomy of these animals, it was a lot of really cool data, and there was a lot of really cool information presented. And I don't necessarily agree with this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In my mind, it works a little bit differently. But what a cool bunch of data that they analyzed.
Yeah.
So anyway, this stood as the most recent hypothesis until somewhere around 2020. The Hillis Laboratory in Texas, so Ann Chambers and David Hillis, reevaluated the data from the Burbrink lab, and included a few additional analyses and things, and basically went through a different statistical evaluation and found that the data best supported the 3-species hypothesis. The 3-species hypothesis being almost identical to what Frank Blanchard in 1921 had come up with, very limited data set using just scale counts and teeth shape and position and stuff like that in the jaws. So anyway, long story short, there are multiple hypotheses, and that's one thing that I think people need to understand too. This isn't like the gospel, right? These are real people analyzing data and trying to put together the best supported outcome from their research.
Yeah,
just like any scientific process, right? It's also expected to evolve through time as we develop more and better techniques for evaluating these data. We expect the outcomes to evolve and become more refined.
I believe that this is also a different method. I think that this is more advanced than the CO1, and I don't want that to be taken as their
It's not a dig in any way,
better.
right?
This is later on in time.
Yep.
The method didn't exist when the Burbrink lab did theirs. Now this method exists, and now they're employing it, and there you go.
Yep. And there has been quite a bit of political back and forth between the two labs, and without getting into those sorts of things, that's kind of irrelevant to this discussion. One work is not better than the other one. We look for a refined hypothesis through time, and I'm just super excited to see people working on milk snakes. How cool for me as a guy who's enthralled with their natural history to see this come to fruition.
And
one
and
thing.
let me interrupt real quick, just for the people watching YouTube. If you're looking at YouTube, the red box are the tropical milks, and the blue box down at the bottom are the temperate milks that we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
And with this particular analysis, it basically shows that tropical milks are different than the temperate milks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have Lampropeltis paulownia, and then
they are not each other's closest relative.
Yes, they're not each other's closest relative. So, with that being said, we can't make them triangulum.
We can't mash them together. It doesn't make sense.
You can't. You have to recognize. So that's why the split did happen, and it is real. Like, that's the thing that I always try to do is make people understand when it is good science. And this is a split that both the Burbrink lab and the Hillis lab kind of came to similar conclusions on. So we know that the tropical guys are different. So.
Yes, we do know the tropical guys are different, and that they regardless of how you want to break them down, they are each other's closest relatives and are a cohesive evolutionary unit, distinct from the temperate animals.
Mm-hmm. And if you look, the purple box is the scarlet king snake, which actually is more of a milk snake by scientific definition than a king snake, which, Getula king, if you will. That's why common names kind of suck. I don't know how else to say that. So anyway.
At times,
yes.
until you have to change these names a dozen times, and then So
okay, all right. So I want to show one more slide from the paper, and we're on the Hillis paper now. But Hillis lab paper, sorry. Slide 7, Max, if you can go to that one. I love this slide because it shows, and if you're listening to this one, this is one you definitely want to look up on YouTube and look at the imagery, because this is a cool image, because what's neat about this is they're basically showing the different hypotheses. So you have
graphically represents what we just ran through. Yeah,
everybody's the same as A. We have different distinct taxa, but we're limited in our species diversity as B, which is kind of what Hillis landed on. And then C is the proposal that was put out in 2014, where everybody's its own species, which is what some would argue is rampant splitting, because it kind of is.
So you've got on the top you've got rampant lumping, and on the bottom potentially rampant splitting. One thing that really came out of all of this, and I think that the authors of especially the most recent papers from the Burbrink lab and the Hillis lab, they all agree that additional work is necessary and warranted to refine this further.
Yes, absolutely. So the final imagery is the next slide, I believe, which is basically identifying the temperate milk snake. Now, this is identifying them as independent species, but I believe is Hillis saying that gentilis is its own tax, or he's saying triangulum?
Hillis says that there is a smooth cline, or generally a smooth cline, between triangulum and gentilis, and that there are no reproductive barriers, and that there is no basically no selective pressure on either side of any clinal line that you may draw, and you'll get the same results. So basically what his work in summary was saying was that you could arbitrarily draw the species line anywhere and get the same result.
Gotcha. So this is kind of our breakdown then. you're a splitter, you're recognizing these as different species. If you're a lump, if you're a splitter, they're different species. Lumper, those would just be, the blue would be Lampropeltis triangulum. The green would be Lampropeltis triangulum gentilis. And then everybody's in agreement that Scarlet Kings are now their own thing, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'll say, when I held that first gentilis, that first Western milk snake, the immediate thing that struck out to me, there were two things as an Eastern person heading out west. Thing number one is, if you strip this thing down to just a monochromatic snake, it's green, it's blue, it's black, it's white. I don't care what color it is. It's all one color. I can't see anything else. My brain would have immediately gone to Scarlet King snake. Like I would not have looked at that and thought Eastern milk snake, which I caught bunches of. I just saw some kind of morphological, way more similarities between Elapsoides than I did with Triangulum, which is why when I saw the arguments that Gentilis is its own species, based off a freaking limited experience compared to Cole's, I was like, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I totally understand, with more herping comes more wisdom. So, I would chalk that up to ecomorph. Yeah. That's what I would chalk it up to. So I would bet that if you, and again, we'll talk about this offline, but I bet I know the general area at very least that very beautiful snake that you had in your hand was found. And if you traveled probably 20 or 30 miles to the west from there, you would find animals with a more blunt snout that did not inhabit sand prairie.
Will you explain to our listeners what you're referring to when you say ecomorph? Sure.
So that is basically local adaptation to a particular habitat type. So in my experience, having found these animals, pretty broadly across the United States, animals with a narrow pointed head, oftentimes a flatter head, more chisel shaped, is adapted for burrowing into the sand. Whereas if you travel into, literally, sometimes 5 or 6 miles away, these animals are, have a perfectly intact gene flow between these populations. But the animals, several miles away on, hard pan soil that are living, under slabs of shale or sandstone instead of burrowing through sand and living under logs, will have a completely different phenotype to its head, completely different look to its head.
So like a defined head and neck kind of thing?
Yeah, or just a blunted snout that they don't need for burrowing through sand. It's not a chisel shape.
Well, that makes sense that the two populations that I have seen these milk snakes from were both sandy habitats. I don't think I've seen them in a more of a normal hard pan soil.
Yeah, so that was one of the defining features originally of pale milk snakes, was that that kind of sand hills type habitat. But since they were first described in the 1800s, they've been found much more broadly. The gentilis type snakes kind of throughout the western U.S. You look at animals from Utah or from New Mexico or from the higher elevations in Colorado. I found them up to, just over 7,000 feet in Colorado. That's pretty high. It's not sandy where I found those snakes. It was, pine and fir needles, with slabs of sandstone. And they're, they have that, more robust, blunter head on them. Probably feed largely on rodents, especially as adults. So again, that kind of goes back to the discussion we had earlier about the different different locales look different. They've evolved for a different habitat. They have different requirements for survival in those different areas. Oh, there's my kid, one of my kids.
Yeah, Max is on it. I literally put in a sec, but he already put it up there before.
It's perfect. So this is an example where the habitat is kind of in between. So
Yeah.
it's a sandy soil that is decomposed sandstone, the edge of the old uh, ocean that kind of ran through the center of the United
Interior
States.
seaway.
Great Interior Seaway, yep. And
Mhm.
so this is about 2 minutes from my house. And anyway, the animals here are kind of intermediate. So they do not have that fine chisel-shaped head like you would see
Mhm.
in Nebraska sandhills or in northeastern Colorado, or even in some places in Kansas. But they also don't have a blunted head like I would see at higher elevations in a pine forested habitat.
That
One
is
of the
super
places
cool.
I've found some neat animals, here about here in Montana is a place with fairly rolling hills that have a very hard uh, kind of baked sedimentary rock. They call it clinker a lot of times
Yeah.
around here. It's a
Cool.
kind of iron rich, but the soil is very dark also, and the snakes themselves are kind of muted. They've got a very dark background color, often really heavily speckled with black, a lot of melanin in it, and then they hatch out pretty clean looking. But then as they grow, the red saddles on them start to turn sort of a brick color, and it matches the color of that clinker rock as well. Also called scoria, a lot of times a real similar type of rock. So sort of that
Man.
brick color, and those animals are almost entirely rodent feeders. They hatch about 2 to 3 times the size of the sandhill animals that you can find just a couple hours away, and they've got they've got a blunt head. They're oftentimes as adults they're even twice the size. They'll be 36 inches long as opposed to 18 to 24.
Do you have quick herping question?
Yeah.
Are Western hogs here or no?
I have found Western hognose snakes on that exact hillside.
Man, I got need to come visit you, Cole. I don't know what the hell has happened to me in the past 2 years, but there's people that want to go to Ecuador and the Galapagos and the Outback, and I'm like, prairies, get me back to the prairie. I just I don't know what it is about that habit. I think the only thing I've been able to identify is that it is about as different from Appalachia as you can possibly get. Like you got the hills, the rolling hills, but we've got trees and lush, and you can't see anything in the woods. Like it is just dense, impenetrable, and it's open. But I absolutely love that habitat.
I can see 4 mountain ranges from that hillside that my daughter's standing on right here as well. So
wow, that's nice.
Crazy.
I've got a quick question. It actually goes back to eggs, but I'm tying it now into localities.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience was only with the bighorns.
Mm-hmm.
Their eggs were enormous.
Yeah.
For those little bitty snakes.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how the hell she had them in her.
Yep.
I mean, so is that common through all of them, or do you find that a little different in the different localities? Because we're talking different. And how many are they normally laying?
So some of the they tend to lay small clutches in general. 2, 3, 4, 5 eggs a lot of times. But the localities that we talked about that typically feed more on rodents with the bigger hatchlings tend to lay the fewest eggs, the fewest largest eggs. Other localities, specifically some of like the sandhills of Nebraska, they'll lay 6, 7, 8. I think my record is like 11 or 12 eggs from a big old female. It was that ancient female I was telling you about. But her hatchlings were like 3 grams. They could maybe barely take the head of a newborn pinky. They were tiny. Honestly, not much bigger than an adult mouse tail. So they were just tiny, but she laid a bunch of them. They look like little ping pong balls, little tiny ones.
I'll tell you those. So when those bighorns laid, she'd lay the first clutch I got. She laid 2, but these things were. I mean, I had trouble understanding how she had one of these in her.
Huge reproductive investment.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to remember back because, I mean, we're talking about maybe 24 inches, the female, if that, probably hell, I can't, it's been so long, but these eggs were bigger than, because they were long. When I say big, it's not like they were big fat eggs, but they were very elongated eggs.
Yeah. Yep.
Like sometimes like some Cow Kings or Mexican blacks, things like that. They weren't quite as thick, but they were longer than what my Mexican Black King eggs are.
Yeah, you get big thumb-shaped eggs once in a while.
Yeah, right. That's yes. It's like little bananas. They're just huge. So I was just curious if that was something that was common, because I remember that was my second. There's two big surprises I got. First was when they showed up. I never realized that they were going to be that small. But
you got the big ones, man.
Oh yeah. When I'm saying that, don't take that as like
no.
Upset. No, they were eating like a champ. They did fantastic for me. I was just surprised. But so they were doing great, and then the enormous size of those eggs whenever the female laid. So, and I think her second year she laid 3, and they were giant again.
Yep.
So
no, they
very cool.
invested in a huge amount in their reproductive effort. That would actually be a pretty fun study project.
Oh yeah,
to look into. But
you've given me so many ideas, Cole. You don't even want to know.
But
this whole head morphology thing in relationship to ecology, I love that stuff. And all you need to do that is to go to a museum that's got a bunch of milk snakes in it, and you measure a bunch.
Measure heads. Yep.
Geometric metrics, man. I love that stuff too.
Yep. The Fort Hayes Museum. He's got jar after jar of snakes. So
I've seen the jars there actually. Anywho, well, this was freaking wonderful as fun. Anticipated.
Likewise,
if this is, I so want to get together sometime. I want to go get out in the field with you. I just think it'd be a blast.
I want to go to that mountain where you said there's fog snakes.
I want to go to Snakes and Cigars with you guys. That's what I want to do.
Oh, we need to get you to Colubrid Fest next year. Come hang out.
But no, I've got places where within an hour we can do milks, hogs, and rubber boas.
Oh. Is this
maybe cut that part out of this one?
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh gosh, I'd love that.
All right. Well, this was wonderful. You obviously have the literature if people are interested in milks. I don't want you to necessarily get bombarded, but if people want to find you, is there any way you recommend they go about doing that?
Yeah. I've got an email address that works pretty well. I can keep that under control, so that works pretty well. But it's just my name, colegrover@gmail.com. And so easy, very creative name I came up with on the fly.
Oh, good. Gets the job done.
So cool. Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a fun chat. If any topics come up and you want to talk again, let me know.
Oh yeah, no, totally. We'll have you back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll have you back.
Have like a milk snake round table.
That needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that's
we need to find people who have different points of view on the taxonomy.
There we go.
And then Clint and I just fade into the background.
Every now and then we'll poke one of you.
There's only one right view.
That's exactly how we will start the episode. Is we'll make that statement and then we'll back out. So
we just be sitting out here watching.
Give everybody pointy sticks.
That's right.
So,
all righty.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Bartley, where can people find you?
You can check out everything that we've got available at Metazotics.com. You can follow us on Facebook under Metazotics or Instagram, MetazoticsLLC. You can also find me personally on Facebook and Instagram, Clint Bartley. And please check me and Zach and Max all out at Colubrid and ColubroidRadio.com.
All righty. And since Clint did all that. I'm going to plug, because we haven't done it in a little while, because we're bad members of the network. Morelia Python Radio Network. Thank you, Eric, for all that you do. Thank you for including us in the network. We're proud members of the network, and we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Yeah, there's that. If you need to get a hold of me, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Crawdad, on Facebook at Zac Loughman. And you can always email me. And if you want to find my email, zloafman@westliberty.edu. So that is that. So be it morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time of day it is, hope you're having a good one. Later.